Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the 15mm sci-fi project involving Archvillain Games, who now have, I think since the beginning of the year, maybe December last year, they've been doing these science fiction models as well as their well-known fantasy models. If you've watched video 1, you know that I planned to do armies for the science fiction miniatures in smaller scale to reduce storage, because Archvillain do love their big minis. And if I print the miniatures I want to print, which is pretty much all the science fiction ones, I'm just not going to have enough storage for all the big ones. So what I've done is I've printed out in 15mm, approximately, well, not approximately, I did print at 50% scale, which makes them as close as, damn it, 15mm. So far, I have printed the what are these called? Demonstar, the Reckoning, which is like a demonic faction. I've also printed out the Gult, the sort of orc faction. That will be coming in the next video. But at this point, I wanted to say a few words because at the moment, I'm not really feeling the color scheme that I went for. I went for a sort of a blood red armor scheme, as befitting chaos and demons. For the red, I used Army Painter Blood Red. Is he going to focus? He's not going to focus, is he? Let me put the model down. So for the red, I've been using Speed Paint Blood Red, 1.0 versions. For the grey, well, the grey, I say grey, I'm trying metallics, but instead of metallics, I'm using runic grey. I want to see how this does. If it doesn't really work, then I'll go back to metallics for the Gult. Yeah, but for these guys, I don't know. I'm not sure if the red and grey is really working. I mean, the speed paints went on really well, but I think this is kind of the biggest model I would probably do with speed paints. They do tend to have a bit of a problem with larger flat surfaces, but I'm not, at the moment, I'm not really loving the red and the grey. Maybe after I do a wash and highlights, it'll be better. But yeah, this is the big boy. This is the Devastator. As well as the Devastator, I also printed out two, oh god, what are these called? Druraka Riders. These are like cavalry. Demons riding these sort of cybernetic sort of mix of animal and machines. Yeah, so I've got two of these. Again, all the painting is in work in progress. I've used the blood red for the main armor plates. I've also used that runic grey again for the metallic parts. For the animal's flesh here, I used Crusader skin. You'll notice that the demon, his flesh is actually white at the moment. That's because I'm planning to do some kind of like an undead feel to the skin. So what I'll be doing is I'm thinking about using the flesh wash, the Army Painter flesh wash, over the skin areas to kind of give it that zombie feel. Again, you can see with the other, what's it called? Druraka Rider. Again, you'll see that the flesh, and again, things like the teeth, I haven't actually painted yet. I've left them a white because, again, I think I'm going to try just a flesh wash over the white and see what it looks like. But yeah, I've got a few little bits and pieces to finish off, especially on the base. I've got to do that, like the silo, the broken silo, the tentacles as well. Actually, on the big Devastator guy, I've also got tentacles to do, because there are tentacles coming out of the feet at the bottom. There are also tentacles coming out of his shoulder guard there. For the tentacles, I'm kind of thinking, again, I haven't painted them yet, so I don't know how it's going to work. I was thinking maybe using a green, but again, red and green, I don't know how well they're going to work next to each other. You know, with the with the red armor and green tentacles. I don't know if it's going to work. Maybe the highlights will make it work. We'll have to see. So those are kind of the three big bods. The Devastator, which is, again, if you print 100%, it's huge. The two riders here. I also printed out a Headhunter, thinking that this could be the champion in the BattleRune skirmish force. Now, for this guy, again, I'm using blood red, runic grey, but he seems to have some kind of like chitinous growths on his arm, his weapon, his leg. So for the chitinous growths, like here, on the top of the weapon here, oops, and on his arms, I actually used sand golem. Again, it needs highlighting as speed paints normally do. For the cloak, I used grim black. Yeah. What else? So yeah, that's the Headhunter. Again, this guy, again, he's 50%, yeah? So he's a pretty hefty model if you print him 100%. So as well as those, I've also printed out and started painting the 4 heavy infantry. So these are 2 of them. Again, the flesh still needs the wash. For the sort of inferno gun, the plasma gun, whatever you want to call it, I did use yellow. I used zealot yellow on the sort of plasma coil part of the weapon. Come on, focus. There you go. Also for sort of the buckles, I used the zealot yellow as well. The bases for these guys and for like the general sort of ground base, I'll probably be using a cheap acrylic and then again giving it a wash. So these are 2 of the heavy infantry. Now, at this scale, at 50% or 15mm scale, some of the detail I'm not sure is going to come out well with the paint, because Archvillain Games do very detailed figures. So at this scale, I do have I think my printer's a 4K, but obviously it's not going to be as good as the full scale things, but I'm going to see how the wash is doing. But the blood red and the runic grey have done a fairly decent job of picking out the recesses and everything. The other 2 heavy infantry are here. Bump, bump. The guy on the left is the one who survived the first print. The second guy is the rocket launcher. And again, I used the yellow for the sort of smoke, fire from the rocket launcher as the projectile's going. So again, yeah. Again, you see the white for the flesh I haven't washed yet. As well as these guys, I did the light infantry. Now, these guys are very, very fragile. I've had a couple of weapons and horns break off already as I was painting. But again, I'm trying to keep the palette fairly low in terms of the number of colours. I don't want to get too complex with these guys, but they definitely need a highlight. And then the last one. Yeah, the guy on the right, I've had problems with his hair. His ponytail broke off. His sword broke off. I've had to fix that, but it went in the wrong place. You'll see that it's the sword at the top here. It's not in the right place. I couldn't glue it properly in the right position. That's the best. That's the only position that would actually hold it. So it's going to look a little bit off, but man, what can you do? They're very thin at this scale. So yeah, these are the other 2. So altogether, we have 4 light infantry. We've got 4 heavy infantry, Headhunter, 2 cavalry, and 1 big boy. So these are the Demonstar. Like I say, I'm going to finish the base coats. I'm generally using the speed paints. I'm trying to figure out the best way of using these, to be honest. I have had some, what do they call it, reactivation and leakage. Mainly on the Devastator here. Oops. On some of the plates where I've been doing the grey. You know, it's actually the red's flooded into it. I did leave it a long time to dry, but it seems to still have reactivated a little bit. It's not that obvious unless you look up close. But yeah, there has been some reactivation, some flooding of one colour into the other. And like I say, I have been giving a lot of time for them to dry. But anyway, this is the work in progress. I will come back and show you the final results, and then we'll see how they look as a skirmish force. I have at last finished painting these little buggers. Yeah, I think I took it a bit too far. Miniatures this size, they're tiny, they're really small. So, mate, I think I went a bit too far with these guys. I think with the second army that I'm doing for BattleRune or Kill Team, you know, this project, I think for the second army, the Gult clan, I'm not going to be as detailed or as particular in terms of the painting because this took way too long to do these guys. I used way too many paints. Take a look at that. Yeah, way too many paints. So I need to reduce the sort of the palette in terms of the number of paints, I think, for the next one. Also, the number of stages of painting. Again, it was way too much. I went through a number of stages that I didn't actually need to do, and I found that on later stages I was basically just sort of repeating or going back to what I had in previous sort of stages. So things learned. In fact, when I did the priming, the problems already started. Over here in Southeast Asia, of course, humidity is a huge problem. So when we prime or spray varnish miniatures, you know, there is always issues. And when I was priming these guys, the can was almost finished. So a bunch of these guys have a lot of, what's the best word? From the primer, like a very sandy, gritty finish, which caused a lot of problems trying to get smooth paint, especially on some of these smaller figures, the sort of infantry figures. The primer didn't give me a very good smooth coat. It was a very rough, like I say, kind of sandy in some places. Now I'm kind of attributing that to two things: one, the humidity, and also because I think it was near the end of the can, the spray can. I did do the Drew Rucker Riders. I did actually do these with the new can, and they came out a lot better in terms of the primer smoothness. So yeah. Anyway, let's show you what I've got here. So this is what I've done so far. This is enough for a basic level BattleRune game. Again, I have to check with Archvillain to make sure it's okay for me to actually record videos of the game because it's still an alpha. But what you've got here is essentially a basic BattleRune force with options. This is more than a kind of starting force, but it gives me alternatives to sort of swap in, swap out, also to maybe add to make the force a little bit larger. We have here 4 heavy infantry. So there are 4 in the set, so I printed 1 of each. Here we have the 4 light infantry. Again, there are 4 in the set, so I printed 1 of each. Now, these guys caused me some issues with the weapons. The weapons are extremely thin. This miniature here, this one, I actually broke off, as I was painting it, I actually broke off one of his swords. You can see I've managed to fix it back, but it's at a weird angle. It looks more like a kukri, this sword here. Also, he had a ponytail on the top of his helmet. That also snapped off as I was cleaning it. But yeah, these light infantry guys, very, very delicate. I don't know how easy it's going to be to actually play with these. But again, that's going to be part of the project. It's not just so much in terms of can they be printed? Do they still have good detail? The answer, yes. But also in terms of whether it's possible, whether it's easy, whether it's suitable to actually play with at this scale. Because I know you can definitely play with plastic or metal 15mm. But scaling down these kind of figures, again, I don't know whether I have to sort of be very careful as I'm moving them on the battlefield. Because again, and this one also, this guy actually had in his left hand, come on, focus, there you go. In his left hand, he's actually supposed to be pointing with a sword, but again, right near the end, as I was finishing off the painting on these guys, the sword broke off. So I'm just doing like a fist bump. But yeah, the weapons are extremely, extremely thin. I mean, again, to sort of give you an idea as to how small these guys actually are, this is a 28mm Necromunda figure. So you can see the difference in size. I mean, if I put them on the... Let's move these guys out. Again, I'm being so careful when I touch these guys. If I put these down on the board here, you can see the size difference. So again, you can think in terms of volume as well. The thinness of all the weapons. I mean, this guy's actually holding an axe. Oops, there we go. He's actually holding an axe in his right hand, sort of propping it on the rock there. But that is extremely thin, and I'm having to sort of, what's the word? Touching with eggshell, walking on eggshells kind of thing with these things, just to make sure that none of the other parts break off. But you do lose a little bit of the detail, because these Archvillain Games figures, they are very highly detailed 28 or 32mm figures. And you do lose an element of the detail when you scale down, obviously. I mean, it's common sense, really, you know. But with very careful painting, you can still pick out a lot of detail. And again, I think I went a bit too far with these guys. Come on, focus. You going to focus? There you go. I think I went a little bit too far with these guys in terms of the detailing and the painting and trying to pick out every plate and whatever. But they came out really nice. I really like the look of them. But like I say, for the Gult, I think I'm going to be a little bit less picky. So you've got the heavy infantry here, you've got the light infantry here. Again, you saw the scale. You saw how small these things are. That's an equivalent model in 28 or 32. This is one of the original Necromunda figures. What else do we have? Here we have the Headhunter. Bring him to the camera. Again, this was actually a lot bigger than I was expecting. I mean, looking at the group picture that you get with the set, this guy doesn't look to be that much bigger than like the standard infantry. But when you print him out, he's huge. He really is huge. Again, if I put him next to one of the infantry guys, look at the size of him. Now, again, I thought he was kind of roughly the same size, but no, he's a lot bigger. He's pretty much the same size as a 28mm figure, isn't he? Look, about the same size, aren't they? But yeah, again, I think I went a bit too far painting this guy. The details, even though it's kind of the equivalent of a 28mm sort of human scale, the details are extremely fine, extremely small. So yeah, I kind of not 100% happy with the way his cloak went. Again, it was really rough from the paint, from the spray primer, but it seemed to work. I tried doing the grey, using Runic Grey by Army Painter for the weapons and for a lot of the metallic areas. I wanted to try something sort of not metallic, sort of grey for these guys. But again, you can see on this figure the rough surface from the primer, how I couldn't get like a smooth painting surface on the weapon there. Yeah, that's because of the primer. So if you're in a hot and humid area, be careful with those spray cans, yeah? And if it's near the end of the spray can, be even more careful. Yeah, so that's the Headhunter. Now, I planned this guy to be the champion for the BattleRune force. Now, what else have we got? We also have the two Druraka riders. Now, there are 4 of these in the set. I've only printed 2. Because I think for the smaller BattleRune games, I think you only really need 2 maximum. This guy, the Headhunter, there is also 4 different designs, but again, I only printed 1. So the Druraka Riders, like I say, I painted 2 of these guys. For this guy, I think his horns broke off when I was getting rid of the supports. The base is really nice. It's got like a cryo chamber on the base. For the cryo chamber, the sort of plastic or metal container was actually just white, and the Minwax cherry that I used to sort of wash everything made it, well, finished. I didn't bother doing anything else, to be honest. This model, I think, if I remember correctly, was also missing the front foot. I think it broke off again during removal from supports. There you go. So this is the first Druraka rider. Love the figure. Really, really nice. Yeah, well, doesn't want to focus, does he? There you go. Yeah, got a missile launcher on the back, as you do. The second Drurucker rider is this meaty boy here. There you go. Different design in terms of the head of the rider. I mean, the rider is a different pose, a different design, different horns, different face, different weapons. But the beast itself also has a different head. It's more like a sort of cyborg head. The base is, I think it's the same base, but it has a different positioning for the mounting of the beast itself. So let's turn this boy around so you can see the other side. There you go. I think this is the one where the rider lost his leg during printing. Again, there's a little bit of a gap where I reattached. Not a gap, but there's like a space. It's like it's stretched a little bit from his groin, but it's okay. When I fixed it back on, it's okay. And finally, the last figure in this project for this Demonstar set, for this Demonstar army, is the Chaos Breed Devastator. Now, again, remember, this is printed at 50% scale. So you can imagine how big this boy is if he's printed out at full size. So for this guy, I actually changed the paint a little bit. I started off with grey for his sort of armor trim, and also for the shoulder plates here, the trim here. I started that with the same color as the gun, is in this sort of runic grey, but I didn't like the way it looked, and I thought a darker color would actually be better. Now you'll notice that it's actually still very shiny. That's because I haven't actually varnished these guys yet. I wanted to do this kind of introduction to the models, going through all the different models, showing the paint jobs before I varnished. Because, again, being over here in Malaysia, the humidity and everything, sometimes when you spray varnish, it goes frosty, which kind of ruins the miniature. I mean, you can use, I think, olive oil or a gloss varnish to kind of get rid of the cloudy effect, apparently. I haven't actually tried that, but apparently that's what works. But normally if it goes cloudy, it's kind of a, oh no, all those hours of work wasted. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this part now in case the varnish doesn't work. If the varnish works, then I'll show you the figures after the matte varnish after this. But again, you can see, I love it. I love it. I love this model. I really do love this model. Yeah, really, really nice. I'm thinking maybe I could have done a better job on the base. Maybe the green. I think I used plasmatic bolt, I think, for sort of the tentacles. Also up here on the shoulder plate, the tentacles. I think I used Army Painter Speed Paint 1.0 plasmatic bolt. But again, I think it turned out okay. But all these guys are going to be matte varnished in about 20 minutes. It is currently about 4:30 in the morning. I wanted to wait until it's kind of the coolest outside. I mean, I'm still sweating. I mean, Malaysia's hot even at 4:30 in the morning. But it's kind of the coolest part of the day, sort of between 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning. So in about 10 or 20 minutes, I'm actually going to take these guys outside. We're going to try varnishing them, and then we'll come back and see how they are. And then I'll do the standard sort of display video pictures to finish off. But like I say, I mean, in terms of printing, yes, they printed, but they are extremely delicate. I did use a little bit of tough resin in with my normal resin to sort of give them a little bit more strength, but it didn't really work because, like I say, we've lost 2 weapons and a ponytail. You've got to be, again, touching these very, very carefully in the games. But they look really, really good, even at this scale. I mean, like I say, Archvillain are known for their highly detailed 28, 32mm scale figures. When you scale them down by 50%, they still keep a lot of that. Obviously, not all the detail will print down at that scale, but it still looks amazing. And I have to say, it's comparable. I think you could definitely compare these to, some of the better, or maybe even the best 15mm sculpts out there, and you wouldn't be far off, But don't use the pre-supported miniatures. As I pointed out in the first video, do not use the pre-supported figures. Use the normal unsupported figures and add your own supports. And I've got to be honest, don't try and get every single island. You will go crazy because these figures have so much detail. They have so many islands. If you try to support every single one at this scale, you're going to get solid blocks of supports that you just can't remove. And it's a nightmare. It really is a nightmare. So I think for future, based on what I've done here, I think I will go ahead and do other Archvillain Games sci-fi sets. I've got one more. I did print out one more, as I showed you on the first video, the Gault clan. I did print out enough, again, for a BattleRune army. But there are a lot of other sci-fi sets that Archvillain Games have produced. Anyway, I'm going to take these outside and try to spray varnish them, and we'll see what happens. I'll let you see the results, good or bad. Give me 1 second, and I'll be back. Okay, so I did the spray varnishing last night. I was very careful. I didn't spray for too long, didn't spray too close or too far away, because, you know, out here is still humid even at the coldest point of the day. Coldest. But yeah, it seems that the varnishing went good. Where's some wood? Touch wood. There are a couple of points on the Devastator. Is he going to focus here? There are a couple of points around his midsection that maybe the spray didn't get to that are still a little bit shiny, but yeah, the varnish came out pretty damn good. Excuse my language. So these guys are now ready for games of Kill Team, Planet 28, 5 Parsecs, BattleRune, which is what I've kind of built them for. Any skirmish sci-fi game, these guys can definitely be used with. However, I'm still going to be extremely careful handling them because these weapons, especially on the light infantry and the heavy infantry, these things are so likely to break off. So I've got to be very careful when I play. So what we have here is enough for what they call a battle engagement in BattleRune. In BattleRune, there's basically 3 sizes of game that you can play. The smallest is what they class as a skirmish game, which is played on a 3x3 board. But again, we've scaled the miniatures down, so I may play on a 2x2 instead of a 3x3. And again, because of the scale of the miniatures, I have to play the game and test it to see whether I need to actually change the measurement system, the range and movement. Because I was thinking maybe I have to change from inches to centimeters. But we'll have to see. It might still work. So yeah, with a skirmish level game for BattleRune, you get 15 rune shards, and this is the currency that you use to purchase units. The Devastator will cost 4 shards to recruit. The Riders, the Drurucker, what are they called? Drurucker Riders, would cost 3 shards each. The Headhunter, if I use this as a Headhunter, would cost 3 shards. The heavy infantry would be 2 shards each, and the light infantry are 1 shard each. So you have a total of 15 to spend to create your warband, your force, including that BattleRune. I don't want to go over too much the rules in terms of this video, but basically what we have here, this essentially, including the BattleRune for Amaros, a Devastator plus 4 heavy infantry, that would be a skirmish force. But you do get the champion for free. So like I mentioned before, I was thinking of using the Headhunter model as the champion. But we've also got a bunch of other models over here that I can substitute. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Devastator, maybe it's too many points in one model. So maybe I'll swap out the Devastator, bring in a rider, maybe bring in a light infantry as a scout. So you can play around. But I've also got in total here 25 points, which again would be enough for me to play the second level of games as well. Right, that's enough of me waffling on. So Like I mentioned before, this is the first army that I'm doing scaling down to 15 mil. I do have the Gult all primed and ready to paint. But that'll do for now. The painting came out pretty well. The detail was pretty good. And the varnish seems to have worked okay. Yeah, I had to use those like close-up glasses to to paint these because the detail's just so small. But yeah, they came out okay. Again, I'm just a little bit worried that the weapons are all going to break off the first time I take them onto the battlefield. Also, I do have some terrain. I've printed out and scaled down a bunch of their terrain from their welcome pack. So this has been primed, it's been washed with Minwax. I've got, I think, 9 pieces. I can't remember how many I built, but again, these are all ready to go, and they've all been scaled down so they're the correct size. But these are nowhere near ready to kind of show you guys yet. But yeah, these are the terrain pieces you get in the Archvillain Games Sci-Fi welcome pack. There's 3 here. Still work in progress. There's another 3 here. That's a corner piece. That's a piece of damaged. Is it gonna scare you? A damaged roadway and some kind of turret system. That's 6. I did 2 more. There's one piece I didn't do because it's really complex and I just didn't have time to print it out. It's like a fountain and some kind of doorway. So yeah, these terrain pieces are on the way as well. I'll get them ready for the battle. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Please watch until the end so you can see these miniatures in a bit more detail. I do appreciate you guys watching. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. I really need to get more. And I will see you in the next video, the Gult clan. So enjoy the close-ups. Cheers.